So my fourth day was a trip to the Amalfi Coast. I booked this sort of tour transportation excursion where basically they give you transport from Sorrento to Positano and Amalfi of the Amalfi Coast. They would drive you to this boat, and then once you're on the boat, you have like an hour boat ride to Amalfi first. And then along the way, it was a tour. So they sort of pointed out the different like small rocky islands along the way, told you about how back in the day some of them had castles on them. They pointed out buildings. And then along the way, they point out if there were some like famous rich houses along the way or popular grottos and things like that. It was a really nice scenic tour, and I just wanted to do this because I didn't want to have to deal with worrying about boat times, travel times, taking like trains and ferries, and worrying about crowds and things like that. And I felt like this was just easier. I knew I had a seat. I knew, I would have like 2 or 3 hours of each town, which looking online seemed like enough. So I thought this was the best thing for me. And like I said, this was supposed to be on the Amalfi Coast. The Amalfi Coast consists of a number of towns, one of them being Amalfi, another Positano, which we're going to visit. They also had like Ravello and Praiano and things like that. So the first one we went to was Amalfi. So I had a few hours here to just wander around, look at the town, which is pretty small. There was one street. They did have a nice church that was free to enter and look at. And some areas that you just have to pay €2 to go to. So I went in and looked at the beautiful church with lots of gold decorations and things. And then they also have like a crypt area and some cloister as well, which is just like a really sort of pretty outdoor area where you can see the open sky. And they're mostly in like monasteries or churches where people like nuns or the monks can't really interact with the outside world. So this was like their area to get some fresh air. It was also part museum. They had some of the walls where they showed the original frescoes they used to have, and had a lot of old sort of like timely pieces and artwork. And then, like I said, there was the crypt area, and so also got to tour down there. Overall, it was a pretty interesting thing to do for pretty cheap during the time that I had in Amalfi, so I would suggest it if you go. After that, I continued on a little stroll down the town, main street, and then I ended up eating at this little shop that had the most delicious caprese sandwich I've ever had on the face of the planet. The tomatoes were so juicy and good. This was like one of my more memorable meals, honestly, just because I was so surprised at how good it tasted. And then I also had a little limoncello spritz on the side. I think overall I had about 3 hours here in Amalfi, which was the right amount of time. I finished early, and so it was sort of just walking around the pier and everything and just trying to see what else there was. They did have a naval museum that was supposed to be free, or at least online said it was free, but it actually wasn't. And I wasn't really that interested enough to pay for it. So I sort of just wandered around and looked at more stores and everything. Then it was back to the boat where, like I said, they showed us some like grottos, little famous archways, told us little stories, and then we're on to Positano. Positano is slightly bigger than Amalfi. I would say instead of Amalfi's one road, Positano has two roads. But no, in actuality, it's slightly bigger. There's a lot more stuff, a lot more shops. It seemed like there's more areas for tourists to spread out, and there was a lot of different types of shops, like higher end shops as well. I did like the layout of Positano more than Amalfi and just the overall feel of it. Because it was a lot more open. They seemed to have a lot more restaurants of like different varieties and bars and things like that. It also looked a little bit prettier because had a lot more greenery. I had walked up a far bit away up the hill. It gave me a nice look at the town, but then I was pretty tired and just wanted to eat a little bit. And so I stopped at this bar, just got some wine and arancini before moving on and doing more window shopping. But that was the end of this trip. We got one last ride where we could see all the islands, and then it was time to go home. After I got back, I went and had dinner at Guaracino, the restaurant I had passed by earlier, a few times actually. I got this nice clam pasta, and as well as nice bruschetta I got earlier, which was really delicious. I'm not really a tomato person, but these tomatoes in Italy really are knocking it out of the park. The fifth day was a relaxing day for me. I didn't really have anything planned, so I just wandered around and went to areas that I had seen but hadn't been to during my stay. So I went down that windy road to the port area where there was a lot of people sort of just waiting to get on a boat to take them away to somewhere. There are also some restaurants down there, as well as the beach area. Nothing was open yet because it was so early in the morning, so the people that owned the dock let me sort of just walk around, look around the area. I got to see the steps and everything people use to go into the water. They also have restaurants out there, so I figured I'd come by and eat on the water later tonight. Then I took a really steep walking path back up, and then I went to one of the larger churches that was by the water, the Cloistro di San Francisco. And this had another cloister, sort of like the one in Amalfi, but this was a little bit smaller. So I just visited that, took a look around. They also had little displays out and some original frescoes as well that I looked at. There's also this small like park garden area that the free walking tour guide had talked about and said that it's a nice peaceful area to go see. So I went to go take a look. They have lots of oranges and lemons back there, as well as like some flowers and little vineyards. There was also like this walking path up above that connected that vineyard area to like a more, I guess, historical like area as well that had like the old tower and sort of castle parts. So it was nice to just walk around. You could see a lot of the town from up there. It was really cool. Just a nice little thing to walk around. They had a display of the old farmhouse with frescoes and also sort of like back in the day, the wine storage and like an old kitchen area that you could look at. I was a bit hungry after that, so I went to a restaurant I had passed by on the walking tour called Adu Mama. It's a really little like kitchenette kind of restaurant. They didn't really have like a big stove or anything, but the food was still really good. I got these little like crostini with some cheese and toppings, and then this bolognese, which was really good. Had some more time to just lounge around. I decided to go to the little garden that was in front of my hotel that I hadn't really sat in. I got this limoncello spritz from our hotel bar and just sat out under the lemons and enjoyed it. For dinner that night, I went to one of the beach restaurants that had been on the water. I got some pasta and some vegetables. This place was okay. I think it definitely was more like a beachy, touristy area. So the cooking in the other place was better. So after that, I went and got dessert at Naima and get that lemon delight. And then I just walked around because this was my last night in Sorrento and I'd be going into Naples the next day. The next day was my travel to Naples trip, and on the way from Sorrento to Naples, I stopped in Pompeii. I'm really glad I made this trip. I definitely suggest it to anyone nearby, even staying in Naples or even Sorrento. It's a short train ride away. Pompeii is probably one of the sites where you might want to get a tour guide. Otherwise, it sort of just looks like a collection of walls and stones. You don't really know what's going on. It looks beautiful though, like beautiful poppies and all the fields and the beautiful sky. Some things you might be able to figure out a little bit on your own, but definitely a lot of things I was just overhearing from tour guides, sort of them talking about how like the richer houses had to step up from the street because they were like able to afford it and they were out of all the dirt and the garbage and everything on the streets. Or that the places where you see this line between the stones at the doorway meant that that used to be a shop. They had an indoor section that had all the old artifacts found at the site. So a lot of the pottery, some statues, and a lot of like old artwork and stuff like that, some frescoes. Of course, Pompeii is famous for the volcanic cast made of people when the volcano erupted, so they had a lot of those on display as well. But Pompeii was a whole entire town, so they had all the shops, the houses, they also had basilicas, churches, bathhouses, the list goes on and on. And really the whole expanse of it is really incredible and amazing. And you could really just spend a whole day there. I spent about a half a day just wandering through the roads, just thinking about how long it takes to get from one place to another, but just like any other city when you go to visit, you could spend the whole day walking. You could see they're still excavating or at least trying to preserve some parts of the walls, which honestly, whenever I see this happening, I wonder if it's like all an act that they put on just so our tourists can sort of see what they did when they originally unearthed all the area. some of the houses and everything was really cool, so you could still see some of the artwork on the walls, and they still have the mosaics on the floors. You could really tell how some of the inhabitants were a bit richer than others. Like I said, I really would suggest visiting Pompeii. It's just so amazing to see the expanse of the city, sort of looking back then and seeing how the city ran, how it had pretty similar to today's city, seeing the really large houses owned by the rich people, but also the smaller, less expansive houses was also really interesting. I think it's a really good day trip. I probably would suggest getting an audio guide or a tour guide or something so they can explain a little bit more. But even without that, you can appreciate all the great detail that went into making this city. And so, yeah, I would definitely go back again and see it. After Pompeii, I was onward to Naples, and boy, was it different from Sorrento. Naples is a larger city, and it's a real city. It's pretty crowded. Naples is known to be pretty grungy. There's lots of graffiti everywhere, but it's also known for its pizza. It was the birthplace of pizza, so of course, first meal I had to get in Naples was pizza, and it was pretty good. This place was recommended by the B&B host that I had, so that was nice. But after that, I continued walking. As you can see, like I said, it's a bit grungier. They also are obsessed with Maradona, and later on I went to a little mural they had for him. To be honest, after coming from Sorrento, the grit of Naples was not really impressing me too much. It was definitely wild. Even crossing the street, it was like I was playing a game of Frogger. Because even though it's a crosswalk, these cars do not stop unless they are sure they're going to hit you, and then they'll pause. But you just got to go for it. I spent the day wandering around, just exploring, seeing some sights, went to the water, happened upon this random fashion show that I watched for a few minutes or more than a few minutes. Of course, finding little morsels to eat was also an objective. Naples is really big on street food as well, so I got this fried shrimp and fish little cup thing. Thankfully, even though Naples is as loud as New York City, I would say, and as crazy, my hotel room / B&B was off a quiet street, and it was really big. This was supposed to be a room for maybe 4 people, but it was cheap enough that I got it, and it was a real bed and breakfast, so they had this beautiful breakfast spread in the mornings, which I happily partook in, and then we had a little outdoor area looking into the back of the garden, so that was really nice. I spent some time at Naples National Archaeology Museum, which I really liked. A lot of it had some Pompeii stuff, which it was kind of interesting seeing the cast they had here and sort of what they described it as versus what I had seen just the day before. But it was really cool. They have a lot of huge statues. It was a really good museum. I definitely suggest it if you have the time or if you're in Naples. Very much something you should put on your list to do if you enjoy artwork. I ended up getting lunch at this place that was around the corner of my B&B because the B&B actually gave me like a little discount ticket for it. And I had the best chicken sandwich I ever had in my entire life there. I'm not even exaggerating. After that, I walked around a little more. There was this monastery that I wanted to go to because they also had a really beautiful looking like cloister as well. And out of all the cloister I'd seen in Naples and Sorrento and Amalfi Coast, this was the most beautiful. I spent a lot of time here just walking around, looking at all the tiles and the frescoes and just beautiful artwork on the pillars and with the orange trees and everything in this area. It was just so lovely. It was really nice. I would suggest visiting. It's just a few euros. So if you have the free time, definitely worth the visit. They also have a little museum section showing some of the women that lived there and also how this area had to be rebuilt after the bombs of the war. And then there's also like more excavation sites as seen frequently in the past few days. I continued on and made it to the area called the Spanish Quarters, where they basically have a whole monument mural to Maradona, who played for Naples, but they absolutely love him. It was kind of crazy how much Maradona stuff was in this area. Like, here's a guy actively painting a mural, but there's an established area further up ahead, and it's just really something to see. And then my hike up to the top of the hill continued, and I got on this little tram to bring me up to one of the viewpoints where you can overlook Naples. And then I also went to another one that was in a park a little ways in the city that had a really nice overview of Naples. But that was then in my day. At night, I went to a restaurant nearby my hotel, had a great meal, and then I headed back to my hotel room because I would be flying out the next morning. It was a really nice trip overall. I really love Sorrento. We'll definitely be going back again, and I can't wait. Thanks for watching.